Hey guys, Anfield here, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about goals, and specifically goals you can work towards in BDO. Many times on stream I get questions relating to what should someone do or work towards and how to stay motivated, and it's important to remember that Black Desert is an MMO, and it may have qualities that differ from other in the genre, but ultimately overall the focus is the same, and that is simply put, behold my stuff. Not everyone will have that same carrot at the end of the stick though, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. Depending on your experience, you may or may not know about all of these individual potential achievements, but I hope regardless you may find the video informative and fun anyway. And if you're new or potentially going to be a new player, I hope you find something in here that sparks an interest. So let's get started. So let's talk about the two most common things first that you're going to work towards outside of maybe your character's level, and that's character gear and life skills. Gear is a fundamental part of Black Desert Online, and due to the more unique nature of the game, it is completely in your hands. You don't need a raid of players to acquire it, and you cannot have it traded to you. It's up to you to gather the money or the resources needed to reach higher and higher levels. When wondering what path you want to take next in the game, gear is the simplest answer, as maxing gear in Black Desert is astronomically difficult, and for me personally, at the time of this guide, I'm seeking to reach Caphras level 10 on my Pen Red Nose armor, for preparation to upgrade it when Odalita launches, where I can upgrade it to Dead God or Fallen God, we're not sure of the name. I'm currently Caphras level 6, and I need about 15 billion to finish it. But let's not forget about life skills or professions, as it's not just getting gear and killing monsters that rewards you with resources, but also life skilling and professions, which can be insanely profitable. But life skills also have their own gear, with the most prestigious being a Manos, so perhaps your goal is highly upgraded Manos life skill gear, or even Guru in a specific profession, which is the highest level of profession. So no matter what, one of these, or perhaps both of them, are likely the primary focus for you, and in some ways will help you reach the other goals I'm going to talk about in this video. So for our first non-gear related achievement, I want to talk about an oldie but still highly respectable archaeologist map. The map is the oldest of the rare combination items completed by players. The map functions similarly to a traveler's map, except it allows you to teleport back to your original location. An excellent tool for fishers and those who are in hard to reach areas that need to visit a town to offload. It has a 6-hour cooldown, and you have 30 minutes in which to use the travel back option. First introduced in Valencia, the map requires 4 unique Map of the Unknown piece, for which you need to grind 2 separate areas. 2 pieces drop from Pilaku Jail, an area in the very southeast of Valencia tucked away through the Great Desert. The jail is vast and provides adventurers with a decent challenge, but in the modern game shouldn't be too much of an issue for those of you with about 200 AP or more. 2 monsters here drop the unique piece. The Sword Deportee and Iron Fist Warder each drop a unique Map of the Unknown piece. Next up, you want to go to Rhodes Sulfur Mine, or Rhodes Sulfur Mine. Never know how to pronounce that. But the Sulfur Mine is in the northeast of Valencia this time. In this spot, there are 2 mobs dropping the unique piece, the Lava Tukar and Lava Devourer. So again, you're looking at 2 unique mobs just like Pilaku. For the map, I've decided to rank it on the lowest of my list at D tier, simply because it's not that complicated to obtain it. It's a bit of a grind, sure, but still. Its usefulness is also rather minor compared to subsequent things on this list, but it's still a pretty cool thing to get. Moving on though, we have Laffy Bed Mountain's upgraded compass. This item operates the same as a temporary explorer compass, although it's permanent. That is to say, it allows you to use your map in the Great Desert and the ocean, which normally would be impossible. Although an invaluable asset, not as great as you can get temporary items as already mentioned that do the same thing. Instead, what makes the compass stand apart is the ability to summon 4 party members to your exact location anywhere in the world, and this can be doubled if you have a tagged character. This is a valuable tool for PvP if you are being ganked or need to call your guildmates, but for the most part it ends up being a glorified summon to endgame spots or world bosses. Believe me, I would know. The compass has 3 parts, one of which drops in Akhman, one of the underground desert dungeons which you can enter through random portals in the desert. Akhman is an introductory endgame spot though, requiring a significant step up in gear over your typical grind spot before it. The monster you specifically want to focus here is the Akhman Elite Guardian, which drops the compass piece. For Akhman, it can vary from class to class, but very early entry would be about 235 AP with a Kutum equipped. For DP, just make sure you're running full type boss armor, or close to that. For the remaining 2 pieces, we must go to Histria. For a long time, the hardest spot in the game, and when it was released, it was too hard for anyone to grind. History is also accessed through random desert portals and requires closer to 245 AP with Kudum for most classes, similar DP requirements as before. The monster that drops the pieces here are Vodkins, which drops its own unique piece, and then you have Elton and Bolton for the remaining piece, so both of them can drop the same piece. It's the so-called Elton piece, which drops off Elton or Bolton, that is the hard one here. Developers actually had to add the piece to drop from Boltons as well as Eltons to make it somewhat easier, but the rate is still so much lower than the Vodkin piece. The compass is no easy task. There are many endgame players who have never completed one. I myself took a year and a half to finish it. Despite the challenges, I rank the compass at C tier here. Like the map, the usefulness is questionable, and you could argue it's better to have a friend with a compass than to have it yourself. It's still challenging, and far less people have it than the map, so you can still show it off. And the grind itself will make you a lot of money. Next up, we have the Dream Horses, Pegasus, Unicorn, and Doom. Dream Horses, or as they're often referred to by the player base, Tier 9s, were first released with the Pegasus in the Chemisylvia expansion, followed later by the Unicorn, which was released in the second part of that expansion, and then finally Doom was released some significant time later. Although, of the three, Doom is actually the easiest to make by far, followed closely by Pegasus, and then much harder is the Unicorn. This is due to the unique materials used to boost the chance of awakening your Tier 8 Corsair horse to one of these three. I should mention that in the case of Pegasus, the game's name is actually Arjunaut, and for Unicorn it's Dine or Dina. For simplicity, I'll refer to the horses as Pegasus and Unicorn, because that's what the players refer to them as. The horses are still very prestigious, and unlike our previous goals, you can actually see them in game, so you can flex them easier. There does exist, though, 2 Nightmare Pegasus on the horses on each server. However, there is no in-game mean to actively pursue these horses, so we'll just not include them. That said, at the time of this video, Prolibus just added Dreamy Horses, which is probably a mistranslation, which I will refer to as Tier 10, onto the global lab. So that's the test server. We should get a first look at these new Pegasus when the Korean patch gets it, but until then we don't actually know what the Pegasus will look like, which is the first of the new Dreamy Horses. As this is confirmed content, I will add it to this list as a mention and display it as an S quality later. But for now, we're going back to our 3 current horses. In order to obtain a Tier 9, you can make one or you can buy one. Buying one can require anywhere from 10 billion to 12 billion for a fully leveled horse depending on gender. Tier 10 will require 2 of the same Tier 9s of different genders, so now the gender will actually mean something on Tier 9 horses, whereas previously all it did was increase the price arbitrarily. If you choose to awaken your horse, then you will need a Tier 8 Corsair, which is a goal of its own, and if you're a new player watching this, Tier 8 horses are something I would definitely go for. A fast horse will save you so much time traveling. But in other words, a Tier 8 Corsair is a Tier 8 with all primary skills. It has like a gold icon on it. Then you need a variety of materials from the 3 branches that each represent one of these horses. So you can actually look this up in the central market under Corsair, and then it'll tell you what each item does. You need to fill up to 200%. So you have 3 branches, and you have to fill at least 2 of them up to 100% or some combination. So 2 could be 50% and 1 could be 100%, just as an example. Although you can spend more materials to overstack past 100% if you really want that type of horse. Finally, you need a Krogdalu Origin Stone. Your very first attempt will have a whopping 1% chance to succeed. After that, your chances increase steadily by 0.2%. I myself have made 3 Tier 9s, 2 Unicorns and 1 Pegasus. The 2 Unicorns were on 21 stacks, and the 1 Pegasus was on a 16 stack, meaning 16 attempts. With the Unicorn as my current horse and my overall favorite out of the 3, I am going to go for the Tier 10 variant of the Unicorn myself, but for that I need a second female Unicorn. So, good luck to me, I suppose. Although not excessively difficult to get Tier 9s, I do rank them higher at a B tier than our previous goals because you can properly show these off, and they will lead you to further horse progression soon. And on top of that, they are far more useful within the game. You could perhaps tier them differently, depending on the horse, but this is heavy on preference, so I'll keep them together for now. Moving on to our next goal, I'd like to pair 2 items together. However, I rank them very differently in my placements. This is because, although they were similar items, one is far more useful than the other in my opinion. If you haven't guessed, that's the Infinite Potions. The Ornette's Spirit Essence, or Infinite HP Potion, and the Odor's Spirit Essence, or Infinite Mana Potions. I say mana, but it works for every class resource. Quite frankly, I'll say the HP potion is far more useful, and although I won't place it highest on my list, I think it actually is the most useful overall. They're pretty self-explanatory. Rather than buying loads of potions, you have one low-weight, infinitely self-consuming potion that will never run out. They're amazing quality of life. Now, each potion has 3 parts, all dropped in 3 separate locations, but on top of that, they each require 2 pretty simple turn-ins. These are the least of your worries, and it's the 3 ultra-rare drops that will stump you. For the HP potion, you need to grind an item from the following spots: Shuriken, Forest Runneros, and Bloodwolf Settlement. Bloodwolf is the easiest spot, and is a typical sort of one-hit the mobs type location, it's an excellent grind for new players as well as veterans. The monsters here that drop the piece, which is called the Ash Half Moon Cagtunak, is the Executioner. So you want to focus on rotations with a large number of these mobs. Essentially, you can grind here very, very early, get to level 56 with some seasonal quest gear, and you can likely already kill here. For Shurikens, also in Dregan, the monsters here are more challenging, but still not too hard. You'll want to be 60 though for this, so your class multiplier on skills will be more important, but gear-wise I'd say between 200 and 210 AP, that should be okay. This is my least favorite spot because the monsters have annoying CCs and blocks. You'll want to focus on the Garud and Belkades, which drop the item, the Shuriken Panacea. There is a mechanic here where the normal monsters disappear at nighttime though, and in order to keep going you have to instead summon a mini-boss at their tombs for energy. I would recommend swapping to one of the other spots at night, but if you did want to go to night grinding here, you want to kill the Latte or Nibrika this time. For our final location, we head to Camisylvia and the Forest Runneros spot. Runneros is a step up in terms of difficulty, but they do drop the final potion piece, the Ron's Tintinel Blum, don't ask, which drops from the Guardian or Catcher mobs. This is the hardest location of the 3, requiring upwards of 220 or higher AP to get started. Should you drop all of these though, you will then need to turn in 300 Peridot leaves, which can be obtained through dailies in the Camisylvia region, and also 30 Garmoth scales, which you should have from the 2 Dregan grind spots. These are both exchanged at NPCs for items, which then allow you to combine the infinite HP potion. And now for the infinite mana potion. Once again, you'll be visiting 3 unique spots. The spots here you need to visit are Shura Ruins, Navarn Steppe, and Mansham Forest. Shura Ruins is in Dregan, and the monsters here are even more pushover than the Blood Wolves. Any monster with Keeper in its name drops the potion piece here, named Mark Thanon's Galand. Mansham Forest is a much bigger step up though, and it requires similar gear to Runneros. Mansham's is in Camisylvia, and the drop here is arguably the hardest because it only drops in the Shaman mobs, which there are very few of, and it's called the Nark's Crimson Tier. The final spot to talk about is Navarn Steppe, which isn't like the others as it's not technically kill a monster and hope for the straight drop type thing. Instead you kill the mobs, or in the case Ferrica or elephants, and then you have to use the tanning life skill to actually gather the mobs. Only then can the piece, the Voltara's Clairvoyance, have a chance to proc. If you are lower geared, I'd kill the Ferricas, but you could argue that you make more money gathering the elephants. I would try to have a magical tanning knife for this at least. After getting all 3 of these, you will finally get the 2 other items through exchange, which is 100 Rumbling Earth Shards to exchange and 100 Dragon Scale Fossils to exchange. Again, like before, you're likely to have both of these through your natural process of grinding, but if you don't, they're usually very easy to obtain from the central market. So where do they rank? Well, like I said, I think the infinite HP potion is much better, far more useful, and so I'm going to rank it in A tier, the second highest on this list. But for the mana potion, despite still having use, and some classes do actually benefit nicely from this, I'm only going to put it as C tier. I think the HP potion is that much better. For the next entry on this list, we go to the High C. The Carrack is currently the highest tier ship a player can achieve, with 4 variants in differing stats and prow. These ships are tamed through the bartering life skill and can take months from scratch to get, let alone the equipment for them. I'll be straight with you guys though, I haven't gone for a Carrack myself, despite thinking that they're awesome. I'd really like a Volante one day actually. But as I haven't done this personally yet, my experience is highly limited, and even if it wasn't, a how-to would be its own video. Instead, I'll just say that you should get started with the Great Expedition questlines, which will get you skilled 1 sailing, solid rewards, and help teach you about the bartering mechanics. I put Carrack's actually at A tier, because although you could arguably get one faster than you could get some of the other things on this list, there's still a lot of work. But more importantly, for the list, they're massive and epic, and you can show them off to your friends and take them to Vel. Big shout out here to my guildmate Cheeky. They're also highly profitable with the bartering system, so they're incredibly useful as well, helping them place very high on this list. Next up, we have an outfit. No, not a Pearl outfit or the Karlstein outfit you can eventually craft in game, or even another craftable costume like Ahonkuris. No, this outfit is La Orzeca Outfit, recently released on the Global Lab and then Korea. It requires Odalita, which the rest of the world will get October 7th. So by the time you watch this, you may already have this content. And since I have to currently use Google Translate, it's highly likely the actual name will be different in our version. So if you're confused and in the future, I apologize. Obtaining this outfit requires rare drops from various endgame spots, with the easiest being Thorn Tree Forest in Odalita, which is essentially the same requirement as History of Ruins to grind. However, the other spots are significantly harder. Now once again, I'm working with Google translated information at this time, but as I understand it, you need to grind 3 different spots, or have an option to grind 3 different spots for each the helmet, and also 3 more for the chest. However, you can choose any of those 3. I'm going to assume that the easier spot has a lower drop rate than the harder spot, but I can't guarantee that. Also, you can either get the rare drop immediately. It's called either Couturans or Turans, left to right lung, I'm not sure. Or you can collect 100 black or ashen leaves, I guess, and exchange them for a lung. So that's like an RNG mitigator. For the helmet, your choices are Thornwood Forest, which is by far the easiest option. Ash Forest, extremely difficult, but you know, just about doable for very, very endgame players. And Silent Grave, which is effectively impossible. For the armor part, you can grind Land of the Turos or Tunkta. We're not entirely sure what the English name will be when Odalita is released, so bear that in mind. This spot is much harder than Thornwood though, and it requires 270 AP Kudum at least, and 340 DP at least as well. But still easier than 2 other impossible options, in this case are the Olim Valley and the Silent Grave. One day, I'm sure players will be grinding these 2 spots, but as it stands, the mobs here will only one-hit you. Also, the Turret spot, where you farm the materials needed to craft Fallen God Armor. Well, we're not totally sure on that name either. It could be Dead God, Fallen God, who knows. So that's an added bonus to grinding that spot. If you are able to craft the costume, you also get a special title, which is awesome. And again, I'll remind you to double check all of this information post October 7th. But we may actually not get this stuff in our original batch of Odalita. We may have to wait later. I hope we don't, but I'm just warning you guys. But you can always ask me on my stream. I intend to grind this personally, so you can check that out too. I had to add this though because I find it to be absolutely awesome content, and personally I'd love to see more of this kind of thing. Since it's a costume and it will be so unique and rare, not to mention it looks amazing, you can really show this off. It places it at A in my list, not S, because it does have the option for the common turn-ins, which is kind of the RNG mitigator, so it's still going to be really hard, but it's not quite as hard potentially as it could have been. Before we get to our final goal on this list, I will give an honorary mention to the Rich Merchant Ring, which I'm sure many of you will expect to appear in this list, but it is impossible to farm it due to a drop being tied to Dark Rifts, which only proc occasionally, so you can't just blast some grind spot and hope you get the drop. So you have to wait for those to get absurdly lucky, which is a shame really. The Rich Merchant Ring does save you an extra 5% tax on your sales in the central market, and the first one should be given out soon with the conclusion of the Mysteries of Summer event. Now for our final item. Well, we're going back to the high seas, and it's the elusive Ebenruth Nol. Discounting the Rich Merchant Ring, this is the hardest thing to obtain in the game. It allows ships to breezy sail twice in a row and increase the distance you travel by 50%, making them extremely quick and by proxy, more profitable. Quite frankly, the whole thing is a lot to explain, especially as, again, I haven't personally gone into heavily into sailing yet, and I will link you a guide in the description though so that you can check it out. The major hurdle is the treasure map of a sailor, which requires grinding saltwater crocs deep in Megoria, and it's recommended to have 2 well-geared Carracks for this. You also have a time limit on the items, but if you do manage to get a treasure chest of a sailor, you have a very, very low chance to get the symbol engraved Null. When Pearl Abyss last did a conference, they announced that only 1 player in the world had obtained the Null. This may have changed by now, but it should go a long way to show you why this is so prestigious. For this reason, it is S tier on my list. Despite the fact that I'm not personally interested, I can appreciate its value. I'll also put tier 10 horses here, as no doubt they will be awesome, rare, and, as we already know, very expensive and difficult to get. So that's my list. Did I miss anything? What sort of goals do you guys set for yourselves? And what if of this list interests you? Or are you already going for, or if you even obtained some of these items? Let me know, I love reading your comments. Thanks again for watching. Remember, you can always come say hi on my live stream on twitch.tv/AnfieldW, where I mostly stream BDO, and I hope to see you guys there.